see his grave. Drowning in the monotony, no escape today. But I'm here, gonna break the static's hold. Losing nuggets, time it bites, the story is told. Say goodbye to boredom, headlines made of gold. Twist and shake perspectives in a way so bold. They serve it up with humor with a snarky twist. Little bites and news to fill your daily list.
Hey guys, it's Mo with your Newsy News AM Nuggets for this July 23rd. Our first story is a local Indiana story, but I think it was pretty nationwide. So I thought that I would give this story a little bit of a headlight, especially because this widow has been through hell. Davy Blackburn on choosing to forgive 9 years after wife Amanda Blackburn's death. The book was a long time in the making, but one Davy Blackburn never wanted to pen. The pastor, excuse me, imagined any memoir he would write would center on his journey as a 25-year-old embarking from South Carolina to Indianapolis with his wife to start a church and, quote, will it into a movement that turned a city upside down, end quote. Instead, one day changed everything. The crime is well known, both in Indianapolis and across the country. On November 10th, 2015, Blackburn's wife, 28-year-old Amanda, was fatally wounded during a home invasion robbery. Blackburn found her lying on the floor after returning from the gym early that morning. She died in the hospital later that day. Police would later arrest 3 young men for her death, a trio that was tied to burglaries around the same neighborhood. All 3 men are behind bars for the killing. Almost overnight, 2 years ago, after arriving in Indianapolis with a dream to plant a church, Blackburn became known across the country as a pastor whose pregnant wife was killed while their 15-month-old son was in his crib upstairs. I mean, this was a scary, scary story. I remember being nervous, being home alone. 2015, I would have had November. I would have been a little bit pregnant with the youngest, most feral, and the middlemost feral was a little guy. So it was worrying when you stay at home. You know, you have locks. I don't let people in, but it was worrying. I wasn't in the same area. But again, it was something that was very shocking locally, and I mean that statewide, sort of. Blackburn refers to the firestorm as a nightmare, a blur, and in Nothing Wasted, his new book, is a quasi-memoir he always intended to write, but the story he never fathomed he would pen. He said ultimately he wrote it to show the world his path from pain to redemption. I want people to see themselves in this story and not get stuck, he said. I want them to fall in love with Amanda and realize she was the most amazing woman that anyone could have met. Blackburn also wanted to chronicle how his faith, guided him to heal a long internal battle that culminated in facing one of the men arrested in his wife's killing in the courtroom. Quote, I saw the kind of darkness my heart was going down into, Blackburn recalled from the time. I didn't want that to affect my son. I didn't want it to affect me. So I knew I had to choose to walk in that forgiveness. The idea for a book began not long after his wife's death, starting as a suggestion from other writers who saw his story on a blog. He dismissed their thoughts, wanting to wait until he healed from the traumatic event, but his peers coaxed him to document his feelings then versus waiting. He followed suit and just began to sit down and write. It felt visceral. It felt cathartic, he said. At first, he wondered if the manuscript was too raw, from sharing his initial feelings of rage and hatred as the killers were announced to mentions of blood on the brim of his hat as he drove to the hospital. They disagreed. He finished the manuscript in 2017. The trials for the 3 men halted its publishing until now. Extra time allowed him to include a letter he read during the Dano Gordon sentencing in 2022. Blackburn said he anticipates people will be surprised how much he shares in the book, including entries from his wife's journal. He hopes readers see how pain can turn into purpose, as the book's title suggests. Blackburn lives with his wife Christy and children 11 years old and younger. He and his wife Amanda's son Weston turns 10 at the end of July. The family is surrounded by kittens and chickens and their long-haired dachshund Henry. Nothing is Wasted is available July 30th. So if this is something that you would like, I think that this would be a good book to look at. I mean, this was a very major case in Indiana, and I am glad that he has moved forward. I know that you grow around grief, so I'm glad that his life has successfully grown around that grief. Unfortunately, we have another sad story, but this is the Newsy News Nuggets. Slash's stepdaughter, Lucy Blue Knight, her cause of death has been deferred until after an autopsy. So unfortunately, Slash's stepdaughter has passed away, and we're not quite sure why. There are new developments in the death of Slash's stepdaughter, Lucy Blue Knight. The autopsy on Knight has been completed and the body is ready for release, the Post can confirm. According to the Los Angeles Medical Examiner records, the cause of death has been deferred as additional testing takes place. Read toxicology reports. Those usually take a couple weeks. An investigator is assigned to the case. Knight died at the age of 25 on July 19th at a private residence, records obtained by the Post confirmed. Slash 59 announced his stepdaughter's death on Sunday, saying she passed away peacefully. Lucy Blue was incredibly talented as an artist, a passionate dreamer, and charming, lovable, sweet soul, he wrote on Instagram. The Guns N' Roses guitarist asked for the family's privacy and that social media speculation be kept to a minimum as they grieve and process this devastating loss. Knight was the daughter of Slash's longtime partner, Megan Hodges, and her ex, Mark Knight. Slash first dated Hodges in 1989, and they rekindled their relationship in 2015. 3 hours after the rocker shared the tragic news of Knight's death, a selfie of the 25-year-old was posted to her social media with a cryptic message. On the photo, Knight was wearing glasses, 2 necklaces, and stared away from the camera with a serious look on her face. So this is the picture in question. And she did a really good cat eyeliner. Quote, "Whether I made you feel excluded, manipulated, controlled you, told you to quit your day job from the comfort of being financially supported by my parents, or drowned real issues in toxic positivity, I'm sorry," the caption began. Countless missed opportunities and connections due to a disgustingly big ego, insecure heart, and fear of being vulnerable, the message add. May my soul learn to evolve from my poor job at being Lucy Blue. Please don't, you guys. There is always room to change. You can change if you've been a bit of a douche. Now, look, you're going to get your humble pie servings, but you can grow from that. Don't make a temporary issue. Don't make something that you don't like about yourself, that you can change, something that's permanent. Knight had not posted on her Instagram since January 4th. The post featured a photo of Knight painting, and a painting that she had made that depicted a person wearing a white dress and green cowboy shoes. Before Knight's death was announced, Slash canceled 4 upcoming dates for his solo Serpent tour due to unforeseen circumstances. We love our fans and apologize for any inconvenience this has caused, the announcement read in part. Slash helped form Guns N' Roses in 1985. He left the band in 1996, but returned to the group exactly 20 years later. The famous musician also enjoyed success as a solo artist. He put out 2 solo albums, 2010's Slash and 2024's Orgy of the Damned. So incredibly sorry for Slash and your partner. I know these things are terribly difficult to deal with, and I hope that you are getting the support you need. In our final story, Where's the Gator? Quote, "I lawfully purchased an American alligator." Now, these are amicus briefs I can get behind. A man sues a state agency for unfair seizure of his 750-pound reptilian friend after decades of regulatory compliance. We did this story on Nightly Newsy News, and I said I would keep up with it, and this is the current update. It's not easy being green amid Empire State's bog of red tape. Now, upstate New York man is suing suing environmental regulators to keep his gargantuan pet and get it back. Tony Cavallero, 64, hails from Erie County town of Hamburg, a suburb of Buffalo. And for the past 30 plus years, Cavallero's residence was a home to a giant alligator as well. Because of course, I mean, why have an all seasons room when you can have a gator room? Don't tell my youngest, most feral, he will demand a gator room. And I'm Mama wants an all seasons room, okay? Albert the alligator, 34, is currently far from home at Gator Country Adventure Park in far off outskirts of East Texas City in Beaumont. That's where he was sent to live following a March raid by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation agents. In a lawsuit filed earlier this month, Cavallero aims to reverse the decision that he left his 11-foot-long, 700-pound friend tranquilized, or reverse the decision that left his friend tranquilized in the back of a van sent to Texas. Quote, in or about August 1999, I lawfully purchased an American alligator. I mean, if a lawsuit starts with this line, I say he wins. I have a license in good standing for over 30 years, during which time the license was annually renewed by the DEC without incident. Since owning the alligator, I have always worked cooperatively with the DEC, never received any violations or warning, always properly cared for the alligator, always registered the alligator with the Hamburg Police and Fire Department as required by law. Wait, are you telling me like those weird yahoos with the ligers and the tigers have to tell? Well, I hope they would have to tell the sheriff's department. Could you imagine busting into a house trying to find a suspect and all of a sudden you meet Gary the alligator? Y'all, reason number 11-12,000, Mo is not a cop. Issues, however, arose in 2020 according to the lawsuit. Around the time of that year's license renewal, the DEC changed its regulations and alerted Cavallero to a rule shift. Albert's owner, in turn, submitted a revamped application with 3 pieces of supporting information. In January 2021, the DEC wrote Cavallero another letter informing him of additional measures he needed to maintain his license for the alligator, the lawsuit says. The animal's owner, for his part, said he had already complied and wanted to make sure the DEC officials knew it. Upon receipt of aforementioned correspondence, I made several phone calls to DEC in an effort to explain that the information I previously sent over complied with the requests in their letter of January 29, 2021, but also complied with their regulations, the lawsuit goes on. Nobody from DEC returned any of my phone calls, despite the fact that their correspondents advised me to call them if I had any questions regarding new requirements. Cavallero said he reached out to the DEC several additional times to obtain some regulatory clarity, even listing efforts of his state senator's office. Still, regulators did not communicate further, the lawsuit said. Then came the raid. Cavallero said Albert was taken from the only home he ever knew, without notice, and the license renewal pending. On May 15, 2024, I sent a letter to DEC regarding their failure to make a decision regarding my application to renew my license. The lawsuit continues. On May 24, 2024, the DEC sent me a notice that my application for license was denied for not having safeguards in place to prevent the public from having direct contact with the alligator. Cavallero said regulators are not being honest about their after-the-fact rationale for moving Albert from his custom home in New York, the native home of all gators. The DEC's basics for denying the license are demonstrably false. The lawsuit argues, I constructed a facility sufficient to prevent the public from being in close proximity to the animal, which the DEC was well aware of, as they not only visited the facility but received correspondence and photographs from me detailing the secure nature of the enclosure. The alligator's owner also says the seizure and subsequent license revocation should be annulled as shocking one's sense of fairness. From the filing at length. In this case, I have worked cooperatively with the DEC for over 30 years. I constructed an enclosure for the alligator sufficient to protect the public and received no prior warnings pertaining to its sufficiency from the DEC for over 30 years, during which time they renewed my license without incident. Received no complaints, no warning pertaining to the alligator. I have always done my best to comply with all laws pertaining to housing and caring for the alligator. To the extent a respondent had any legitimate concerns, I should have been afforded some reasonable opportunity to address those concerns. An outright seizure of the alligator and denial of my license was excessive as a matter of law. Cavallero argues the agency incorrectly applied legal standards and invoked the recent U.S. Supreme Court decision that dissolved the longstanding administrative framework known as quote unquote Chevron deference in order to plead his case. As a result of that ruling, federal courts have been strongly empowered to review administrative agencies' rulings for compliance with statutes. It is unclear and untested if the landmark case applies to state agencies as well. Still, the lawsuit asks the court to overrule the decision made by the regulatory body and send Albert back home to Cavallero. In response to their letter and pursuant to its terms, I contacted them repeatedly about regulations, and they never responded. Cavallero complains in the lawsuit. Rather, they took my gator without due process of law, without notice, and I assumed my application for a new license was pending. This was procedurally unfair and violated my due process of law and should be annulled. Well, I, for one, hope you get Albert back. And I'm glad we're not neighbors because, look, my youngest, most feral would want to be adopted by Albert. He's like, Albert is my new brother, and I am a gator too. Anyhoozle, you guys, these are the Newsy News Nuggets for this morning. A little fun, a little sad, a little introspective. I hope you like them. I will see you guys in a little bit. Have a great day. Please like, subscribe, and share all the YouTubey things. Get this out there. Let's grow the Church of Mo. Bye, guys.